Join me. One of the Shir Hamalos, the songs of the steps, referring to the 15 steps in the Bet HaMikdash, the semicircular steps where the Levim would stand and sing. And these are the 15 psalms in the Tehillim corresponding to those 15 steps. We're going to say the second one, chapter or Psalm 121. Shir Hamalos Eser Einai Lehahorim. Nein, Yovi Ezri, Ezri, Mimadino Yoise, Shemaim Veoretz, Alitin, Amit Reglecha, Al Yonum, Shemrecho, Hine, Lo Yonum Elishon Shemi Yisrael, Adenu Shemrecho, Adenu Tzilach Al Yad, Yeminecho, Yoim Shemish Lo Yakeko, Berban, Lo Ydo, Adenu Yishmocho, Mikol Ro, Yishmeres, Nafshecho, Adenu Yishmatzis, Roviyecho, Meato, V'yad, Oilom. I invite you friends to take a little coin, big, small, paper, whatever you have, throw it in the pushka, throw it in the charity box. Any charity box for a good Jewish cause is great. And we will merit the Geula. Let me get back to the parsha of last week still, the end of the parsha of last week, where the Torah relates to us this story, this heartening one, I should say. How Miriam, as it says, that Miriam spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu, about her brother, regarding her sister-in-law, TZIPORA, and as she calls her, Isha HaKushis Asher Lakach, the Cushite woman that she took. Many interpretations, which I don't want to deal with right now, maybe later. But first, who is this woman that Miriam spoke about? Her name is, as we know, was TZIPORA. TZIPORA meaning bird. Why was she called TZIPORA? So here listen what the Medrash says. The Medrash Rabbi says a fascinating thing. When a person's home was covered in leprosy, it needed to be sprinkled then with blood of a bird of a sacrifice. So that blood represents, that bird, in other words, is what purifies the home from leprosy, from tzaras. We call it leprosy. Okay? So too, says the Medrash, that TZIPORA cleansed her father's home from idols and eventually brought him actually to accept Judaism. Another Medrash says, Medrash Tanchuma says, that just as a bird is admired for her beauty, so was TZIPORA admired for her inner and her outer beauty. Torah relates very briefly how Moshe Rabbeinu met TZIPORA. Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, was raised in the home of Pharaoh. At one point, Pharaoh realized that this young man that he's raising in his house is actually going to turn against him, and he wanted to kill him. Moshe Rabbeinu miraculously was saved, ran away, ended up in Midian, came at the well, and there he saw how a young woman is being bullied by the other shepherds and don't allow her to feed her flock. So he protected her. She came home and she mentioned this to her father, that there is a Mitzri, Ish Mitzri. Father invited him, and the Torah says, and then they married. But listen to what the Medrash fills in a huge gap. Interesting. A 10-year gap. What happened, says the Medrash, the following. Medrash Yalkut Shemaini. Indeed, when Moshe Rabbeinu helped TZIPORA, unbeknown to him who she is, but just she saw a woman in plight, he helped her. She brought him home. She invited him home after her father said to invite him. Moshe told him exactly who he is. He ran away from Mitzrayim, he ran away from Pharaoh, who he is, his background, he's Jewish, etc. Yisro at that time was actually an advisor to Pharaoh. So he took Moshe and threw him into the pit, in a prison. And he kept him there for 10 years. TZIPORA took pity on him, and hiding, she would bring Moshe Rabbeinu food. She would bring him some bread and water for him to survive. After 10 years, she came to her father and she said, let's go check out what's happening with this prisoner of ours. What's that to check? 10 years, he hasn't been eating. He's obviously dead. So she told him, you know that Abram was miraculously saved from the fire? Yaakov was miraculously saved from the angels? Moses himself was miraculously saved from the Nile, and then after he ran away from Egypt, from his father-in-law, who knows? They went to check, and indeed he was alive. He was actually middle praying, middle davening. So that's when they took him out, brought him to the table, and that's when Tzipora asked her father if she could marry him. And Yisro accepted. Moshe Rabbeinu obviously realized the greatness of her, and he married her. More about her tomorrow. That is, if we're still in exile. But hopefully we'll be with Mashiach in the Beis HaMikdash. We'll meet Moshe Rabbeinu, and I presume the ladies will have the opportunity to meet Tzipora.